Yuka Rohr is here in studio. Good to have you with us this evening. Yuka, so a major event focusing on tackling malnutrition has kicked off here in Paris. Tell us about that.
Sharon, malnutrition is a huge global health problem, but it's often so overlooked. The Nutrition for Growth Summit was launched in 2013 and takes place every 4 years in the host country of the Olympics. So this year it's in France and comes as global humanitarian organizations are facing a potential funding crisis after the US government halted a majority of its foreign development aid. Now, undernourishment is the leading cause of child mortality. Around 150 million children are stunted today and 50 million people suffer from acute malnutrition. Unhealthy diets are also increasing obesity rates. All this can translate into a loss of productivity. That's why it makes economic sense to address the issue. The World Bank says that for every dollar invested into tackling malnutrition, there's a return of $23. Inaction, on the other hand, would cost the global economy trillions of dollars every year. Now, every country is affected by the issue, but 3/4 of the funding needs are in low and lower middle income countries. Amid recent moves such as the pullout of the US assistance, UNICEF is warning 14 million undernourished children could be at a greater risk. French President Emmanuel Macron called for renewed solidarity.
We need to succeed in mobilizing all energies in a time of uncertainty over funding. Together, we will continue this fight for peace, for food, for our planet, and for collective action that is respectful and responsible.
Next, Yuka, the US has reportedly halted funding for the World Trade Organization.
Yeah, this is according to the Reuters news organization. It's reporting that the Trump administration has paused contributions to the WTO for this year and next. The United States is the largest financial backer of the organization, which was founded 30 years ago as a successor to the GATT to facilitate global trade and resolve disputes. But the WTO's dispute settlement mechanism has been in crisis for years as the US has been blocking new appointments of judges to its appellate body since 2016. As a result, it has had fewer than 3 judges since 2019, which has made it impossible to handle any appeals. And Donald Trump repeatedly accused the WTO of bias during his first term.
And this comes, of course, Yuka, after the fresh tariff announcement from Donald Trump. It sent shockwaves through the global auto industry.
Yeah, well, Donald Trump said a 25% import duty would be imposed on all cars coming into the United States from next week. And a similar measure would kick in a few weeks later on car parts. This has sparked a flurry of reactions from governments, businesses and consumers, with Canada's Prime Minister going as far as to say that the US was no longer a reliable partner in trade, calling the latest tariffs as a direct attack on Canadian car workers. Luke Schrager has more.
Canada warned it would protect its workers from Washington's tariffs, with its Prime Minister suggesting a possible overhaul of its entire auto trade with the US.
We will build an all-in Canada network for auto manufacturing components. Because on average, an auto part crosses that border 6 times before final assembly. And in a trade war, that's a huge vulnerability, tariff as it goes into the United States each time.
That's more than Mexico, which said on Thursday it's seeking preferential treatment from its northern neighbour. Major automakers, Japan and South Korea, are hoping to negotiate their way out of the tariffs. And Europe stated it would react, but continued to leave the door open to discussion. The EU's already delayed one round of retaliatory tariffs until next month.
The Europeans will protect themselves by reciprocating. And the goal of reciprocation is not having the Europeans be aggressive on tariffs, but to find an agreement to remove them.
What's certain is that it comes at a tough time for European car makers, who are already hurting from high costs and foreign competition, and are desperate for a solution.
European governments must engage in talks with the US administration to prevent these tariffs. They did it before in 2018. That's why we're counting on negotiations now.
For now, the US auto tariffs are set to come in on April 3rd, a day after another sweeping set of levies tailored to each US trading partner is due.
Well, the fresh tariff threat spooked global markets again, and automakers were badly hit. General Motors dropped more than 7% and Ford nearly 4% as they rely on the North American cross-border supply chain with parts made in Mexico and Canada. Tesla, meanwhile, rose slightly, as you can see. Earlier in Europe, Stellantis lost 4% for the day. Volkswagen slid 1.5%, but Renault managed to stay in positive territory. Now, poor performance in the auto sector affected the overall market, though other industries were relatively flat today. The Dow lost more than 150 points. The S&P closed the day down 0.3%. And that's it for business.
Yuka, thanks so much for all of that. Yuka Roya there with this evening's business news.